Hi, bookworms. Welcome to Best Book Ever, the podcast where we talk about your favorite books. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and my guest today is Kenya Goree Bell. Kenya lives in Madison, Alabama, with her former warrior husband and 3 kids. She's an author and a fearless autism advocate. Writing as Karis Bell, she's the author of the Regency Harem Diaries series. The Mogul series, written under her real name, is her contemporary debut, featuring a diverse group of characters finding their own happily ever after. In addition to all that writing, Kenya is a lifelong bibliophile and loves to talk about books. She can be found most Wednesday nights hosting an array of fabulous authors on the KGB, Kenya's Grown and Sexy Book Club, where authors come to talk about their craft and their love of books. Bookworms, talking to Kenya was the tonic I needed in the middle of a really rough week. She's warm and funny and a romance fan like no other. I am thrilled that she joined me today to talk about why 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake by Sarah MacLean is the best book ever. Bookworms, for only $5 a month, you can join my Patreon and get access to all kinds of goodness, including bonus clips with all of my guests, advance access to the books we read, monthly book club menus, and more. Not only that, but for the entire month of September 2020, I'm sending a Best Book Ever face mask to all new patrons. And by the way, I get it. Masks are super annoying. They make you feel claustrophobic and itchy. But you and I have a whole lot of books to read, and if we get sick, we won't be able to talk about them. And talking about books is one of the great pleasures of life. So please, wear a mask. The one I'll send you when you become a patron is soft and light. I've been wearing my own for over a month now, and I really like it, as much as we can like anything pandemic-related. The good news is, if you wear a Best Book Ever logo over your face, men will stop telling you to smile and start asking you about your favorite book. That's a win for all of us bookworms with resting bitch face. To get yours, go to patreon.com/bestbookever and sign up for only $5 a month. And as always, thank you for helping me keep the lights on over here in my reading cave. Now, back to the show. Hi, Kenya. Welcome to the Best Book Ever podcast.
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited too. You're one of those people who I feel like I already know because we've spent so much time chatting online, and it's exciting that we finally get to talk sort of in person.
In person, but like you said, like it's just like old friends getting together over, well, you have coffee and I don't have anything to drink now, but over wine. Yeah.
Exactly. We can pretend we're having a real life coffee date, and someday in the future that will happen if this pandemic ever ends.
Fingers crossed. I mean, if everybody just did right, we'll be good.
Has the pandemic changed your reading life at all? Are you reading more or less, do you find?
I'm reading less only because I decided to release books during the pandemic. So that has put a damper on my reading life. So other than that, I'm pretty much still reading about I've gone down from like 3 books a week to like maybe 2. Reading to me has always been like my therapy, my getaway, my escape. So that's always been my every night after I write, I read for like an hour and then I go to sleep. So that's just part of my routine.
Were your parents readers?
My parents were more news consumers, but we had always had books in the house. My mom always had books, and then I think my taste didn't stay age appropriate for long. So she was always trying to monitor and like police my reading. But I did see her reading a lot, but she had 7 kids, so she was busy.
Don't you find that those of us who grew up with moms who were romance readers, we knew things a lot earlier than a lot of other people?
Yeah.
Because I was always stealing my mom's books.
My mom, she read more, she read more, popular fiction. Like she had like, the book that she had, which was bananas, was Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
My mom had that too.
But I just wanted that book, and it was just sitting on her dresser, like just, and I was just like, I need to get that book. And then one day I just slipped it out, and she didn't say anything, and I shouldn't have read that book. But yeah, but I think that kind of solidified. And also, I was at a church thing, and a lady had The Lonely Lady by Harold Robbins.
What's that?
Oh my God, girl. Look it up, Julie. Look, I was like in the 6th grade, and we was at a Baptist convention, and this lady was sitting behind me, and she had The Lonely Lady, and it was very filthy, that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like a popular Harold Robbins, like he was in the Jet Set, and he wrote about jet set life and all of, like kind of like Jackie Collins, but he was like the male version, but way more R-rated. This girl named Bettina gave it to me. I said, this lady was reading this book. It's called The Lonely Lady. She was like, my mom has that book. I'm gonna bring it to you. And she said, those little romances you be reading, those little Sweet Valley High books. She said, that ain't nothing like The Lonely Lady. And she brought it, and I read it, and I was like, whoa, like it was like, and that's how y'all got the Kenya y'all have today. I was reading stuff.
Well, I read your recent release, Rapper's Delight, and now that you're saying this, now I do understand why we have the Kenya we have. That I recall a certain scene up on a soundboard where I was like, what the hell?
I was like,
so
okay.
This conversation explains everything.
With the soundboard, listen, this is the thing. I said, he's a musician. You gotta have sex in a recording studio if you're a musician.
Naturally.
I'm sure Prince has at some point. I'm sure Jay-Z has. You cannot. It seems to me that it defeats the purpose and being a musician if you don't have sex in the recording studio. Who doesn't have sex in the recording? You have to. It makes no sense to me if you don't. Even if you're a gospel singer, at some point you need to have sex in the recording studio.
So you're diehard romance, or do you read other, in terms of your reading life, do you go to other genres ever?
Yeah, I read fantasy. I read a lot of I like Tess Gerritsen. She writes like thrillers, and I read thrillers. I used to read James Patterson for a long time, and Dean Koontz. I like something, but I'm not real. I step away from horror because horror scares me too much. But I do like a good thriller or a mystery. And but romance is my core.
Do you ever do any writing that is non-romance?
All of my writing is romance.
Will you tell us about your pen names, what you write under each of them?
Okay, as Kenya Goree Bell, my real name, and that's my real government name, y'all. is I write contemporary, and as Karis Bell, I write historical.
So speaking of historical, then, how did you come across this book that we're discussing today, 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake by Sarah MacLean?
Yes. I got this book because, as you may or may not know, my oldest son, both of my sons are on the autistic spectrum. And during that time, my oldest son was just coming into his language skills. And we had worked very hard with him, and I don't think I slept for 3 years. And I am a one task person. I'm not a multitasker. So when I was taking care of him, I could not focus on anything else other than helping him. And so I did not read or write for a long time. So I put all of my writing to the side, all of my reading to the side. And then one day my husband was like, well, he's doing really good. He's turned the corner. And he was talking and learning how to read and all of this stuff. And so my husband's like, now is the time for you to get back to doing some of the stuff that you like. Because I think my skin had turned gray. My hair was like graying. I was looking terrible. And so he was like, he took pity on me. He was like, listen, do something for yourself. So I was sitting at home and I was just looking around and I pulled up iBooks and they had a sale on this book, Nine Rules. And I had never heard of this chick. I was like, who is this? And I read it in one night. I got it and I read it in one night. And he looked at me the next morning. He was like, you look high. And I was like, it was the best book ever. It was the best. I told Sarah this when I met her and I cried all over her. And this book started me back reading and started me back writing. And so y'all have Sarah MacLean to thank for the soundboard. Yeah, so that is, and I just love everything about this story. I love the characters. I love the growth of the characters. It's like, this is the catalyst for not only my reading and rediscovering my reading enjoyment, but rediscovering my desire to write.
Why don't you give our listeners a rundown of the plot of Nine Rules for those who haven't read it?
Okay, so you have, they call her Callie, but her name is Calpurnia Hotwell. And she is a spinster. And she has been like totally, she had one bad experience where she had on this awful dress and she was being laughed at and ridiculed. And she meets this handsome guy who this is the prologue, who is so sweet to her and says like all these wonderful things to her he's just being kind to her at this party. And so after that, she kind of starts crushing on him secretly for years. And this is when she's like a debutante. And so she's kind of up in age. And her younger sister's getting married and she's become a wallflower. And she overhears her sister saying, oh, well, we'll let Callie come stay with us. And she'll be the aunt. And they have just given up on Callie ever having her own life. And she overhears this, and so she's like, gets this feeling of self-determination and said, well, she creates a list of things that she wants to do before she goes into this spinsterhood. And one of the things she is to kiss this guy who she's had this crush on. And she just goes in the middle of the night to his house, Gabriel St. John, and the kiss shakes him as much as it shakes her. And so he finds out that he has to introduce his sister, his illegitimate sister, to society. And he needs someone who's well respected in society to do that. He asks Callie to help him. She does because, number one, she's already in love with him. And number two, she's just a nice person. And so they go on this journey together of trying to introduce his sister into society. In the course of that, Callie also has this list that she's checking off that he's unaware of. Shenanigans ensues. They have even a situation where they're fencing, which is one of the hottest things in a romance book, maybe, where they're fencing. And oh my God, it is so and it's so seductive and lovely. And he didn't realize that she was a guy in this, that she was a girl in this scene. And then she's taped her breast because she's full breasted, you guys. And he unravels wasn't that great, Julie? Like when he slowly unravels the linen that she's wrapped around her waist. Oh, and he sees just how beautiful she is. Oh my God. And Callie is like, and she's unassuming and she thinks she's not beautiful. And he doesn't even think that she's beautiful at first, but because of her association and he sees how much life and vitality that she has, he falls in love with her as a person. It's like the greatest wallflower story. Like she's plain, she's serviceable, and this guy who is at the peak of popularity. It was just such a beautiful story.
You look high, by the way, as I was listening.
Like my husband said, I look at her. I just love it so much. I love it. I can talk about books all day.
And Sarah MacLean is so good at that, at having these women who, no matter their circumstances, the women always seem to have agency in her stories. I love that about her books.
And I love how even though Callie didn't realize her power, because like they were like, you run the household, you run our lives, and yet you don't see your own power. The self-realization that kind of like the Glinda the Good Witch thing, you had it all along. It always
Mm.
resides in you. And
Yeah.
and that's what I love about Sarah books too, is that a lot of times people, they have power that they don't even realize that they have. They have agency, and they do find ways within the trappings of society to find the power. Because who ran the ton but the women? And I think Sarah did a good job of showing how tough it was to navigate that. Because sometimes in books you think, oh, the scandal, that it blows over in a year when the new season comes. But they were still um, suffering from the scandal that their mother created when she left and abandoned their family. Navigating that within the story, I thought this was one of the first stories where you see how really bad it is when your reputation has been ruined in that society.
I think one of my questions I have in my notes here was to ask you, what do you think is so appealing about the Regency era? And I still want to know your take on that, but I think you kind of hit on what appeals to it for me,
Mm-hmm.
which is watching, for Regency romance, watching men and women navigate their spaces.
I think the thing that appeals to me most is just the fairy tale of it, right? That you, as a little girl, you get this whole the Cinderella thing, and you fall in love with the princess, and then this is the closest that you can get to that life and live vicariously through them. But what I love about and have always loved about Regency is the tea and the dances and the waltzes and that whole lifestyle that you wish you could have. Like being it seems like they were pampered a lot. If all I had to do was get up every day and get ready for a soiree at night, listen, I'm in for that every day of the week. I could do that. I could sleep to 10. I already sleep to 10. But if I didn't have to do anything other than that and pin notes to my friends and see y'all at Hyde Park and just that's the best life ever. Like
It
you
sounds
know,
lovely, doesn't it?
it sounds so, but I would have to I would have to bathe more because I'm a bathing fanatic. The only thing the dental hygiene and the bathing. But other than
Yeah.
that, we good.
Well, not owning property or having voting rights would also bug me, but that's okay.
If you're rich, it's a workaround. You can
That's true.
manipulate. We can manipulate the men to get what we want, and and I think that's some of the things that we don't realize, how women had to in those times be very clever because they couldn't
Mm.
even speak out on these things. But when I read this book, and it was it's almost revolutionary what historical romance writers are doing now, and how they are they're slipping in so much um, thought about agency,
Mm-hmm.
consent, recognition of uh, what's at play in the world today. And Sarah is doing a great job at this.
Tell me about meeting her.
Oh my God. Okay, so there's this event. It's a Southern Writers Conference down here in Alabama. And so Naima and Sarah and Sally Kilpatrick are on the panel, and they're all talking about romance. And so the night before the event, that's who they have scheduled. Sarah was like, I would love to meet you, and let's go to dinner. And so we all meet at this restaurant called Firebirds. And when she walks in, I'm 5 feet two. Sarah is
Mm-hmm.
6 feet tall and gorgeous blonde hair, the whole thing. Sarah walks in and she just hugs me. And it was an out of body experience. And she smelled good. And she was like, and she was so soft. When they say don't meet your heroes, they laugh because she was the kindest, nicest person, and then just down to earth person. And so we get it. The rest we sit at the table, and I was like looking at Naima like, don't let me act a fool. And so we started talking, and so I was telling Sarah. I started telling her the story about how I started reading this book, and I started crying. And she hugged me, and I was sobbing. And she was just hugging me like, not too bad, not full on ugly cry, but I did cry. And she patted me up. And then after that, and I was like, can we be best friends? And she was like, sure, we can be best friends. And so, and I said, can I have your number? And she gave it to me. And occasionally I get up the nerve to text her and like, how are you doing? I love you. So it's so crazy. But she was the best. She was so sweet and kind to me and fantastic. So it was an amazing experience. So amazing.
I have noticed that everybody seems to have this same opinion about her. And I share it. And I didn't have the nerve to ask for her phone number when I met her, but in retrospect, I wish I had. But I did act the fool when I met her.
How did you meet her?
She spoke at a conference also. I was at a romance author conference here in Southern California, and she was the keynote speaker. And she gave a badass speech about anybody who dismisses romance does not understand what romance actually is, this vast industry empowered by women. But next time I see her, I'm gonna ask her for her phone number because I didn't know that was an option.
Listen, I will get people's phone because I'm a phone person. I'm an 80s kid, right? So I like to talk on the phone, man. I was like, don't get me on the phone. We'll be on there 3 hours. I'm like, give me your number. Let's talk. Because it looks like I'm on social media a lot, but I'm like busy. I have kids. So I like to put my headphones on and I like to sit and talk to my friends while my kids are in the background. They be like, what's going on? What's crashing? I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. Nobody's bleeding. Let's move along, you know. And so it's nothing for me to talk to other writers like for a long time because what do? Then we start talking about our books, right? And we start brainstorming ideas. You talk to a writer and they're like, well, you should write that. Then it starts percolating in your brain. And then you're like, well, maybe I should write that. Yeah. And then you end up with a book. And so it's always good to be around creative people, especially in the pandemic. Like we're so isolated. And even if you text, that's not the phone, hearing another voice. It's almost like a hug. So I encourage more telephone calls with people you like and admire.
So it's that tendency in you is that what made you start your KGB Grown and Sexy? Tell me about that, because you do this where you interview a lot of authors yourself.
Yeah, because like I said, I love talking about books and sex. And so I was writing and I moved away from my family. And we are a very close-knit family. And I was alone in Virginia. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to see if I can get people to join this book club. And then within a day or two, I had like 100 people or so. And I was like, we're going to start doing lives. And I asked Naima, because she had a book coming out. And we started doing the lives. And at first it was just going to be once a month. And then it started being like every week. And people start asking to be on. And it just grew on its own. And I just love doing it. I love reading books and having people whose book that we all love on.
And so people can find these conversations on Facebook, right? Or you've moved.
I repost the videos in the KGB, but to see the lives is every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central on Instagram Live. So under my name, Kenya Goree Bell at Instagram.
And then are past episodes saved so that people can
past episodes are saved on my Instagram and in Facebook. So they can look at the older videos, they can go to the KGB and look at them, or on my author page. I think I have several saved on there too.
Do you ever have people actually looking for the real KGB government? Like, do people ever come on and go, is this
No, because when I started with the KGB, I looked on the Instagram. It wasn't a lot of hashtags for the KGB. So I don't think people were interested in the Russian KGB that much. It was not that many followers. So I just took it over. So I do hashtag the KGB.
You're in the wrong place, Vladimir.
Yeah. Oh my God. His ears will be burning.
I like to think that all of their, higher intelligence is going, yeah, the chatter on KGB, again, they're talking about sex on soundboards. What? We got to get these
or some other crazy things. Oh, I can't wait. Like Sierra Simone is coming back in October. So we'll see what she talks about, what kind of crazy sex she's going to have.
So tell me, what are you reading right now?
I am reading Cry of Metal and Bone. And it is a fantasy romance. It's more fantasy with light romance in there. And it's the third and final installment of her series, The Earth Singer Chronicles, book 3. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's beautiful, and she's a amazing writer. Like, her world building and her prose is like, if you're not like Nalini Singh, kind of like in that realm of writer, she is. You would love her. Or Laura Thasala, those kind of fantasy writers and stuff. Elle Penelope, she's like at the pinnacle of great writers, in my opinion. I love her.
Oh, yeah. Good. I've never heard of her. I can't wait to look that up.
It's epic fantasy, and her world building is fantastic. It's very diverse. It has a whole like the twists in the stories are like what just get you, and there is romance in it. So of course there's a HEA. So, but as you're reading, you're wondering, how are they gonna? I love that when you never know, like, how can they possibly work this out? How can it possibly happen? But she does such an amazing job with that world building in those stories. You love it. You love them.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up as soon as we're done talking.
She's amazing. But that's what I'm reading this week, and very soon after that, I'll be reading QB Tyler's book, which is a taboo. It's a taboo romance. That's all I'm gonna say right now.
It's so taboo you can't even tell me?
It's okay, because it's a stepfather romance. A Love Unexpected, QB Tyler. So listen, the KGB is for everybody. We have to we have everybody in the KGB, and right. It's getting rave reviews. So with a book like that, kind of like I don't know if you read Your Dad Will Do by Katie Robert. No. Have you read that? Oh my God!
Your Dad Will Do?
Let me tell you, it's a novella. Julie, I was reading it like this. I read the book. I was reading the book, and I was like, Jesus. I was like, oh my God. It's on and I read it, and you wonder, how are you gonna make this relationship work? And that's kind of the genius. Some writers, like, who sits and thinks about how you gonna make a relationship with a stepdad work? QB Tyler does that. I don't do that. But it's a level of genius that requires you to do that. And I'm intrigued. I want to see what's going to happen. Now, that's going to be that's one to watch, because she looks so innocent. QB, she looks so innocent. I'm like, What are you doing, girl? So we'll see what
Those
that
are
does.
Those are always the ones that have the craziest imaginations.
Yes, because people think I'm out there. It's not me. It's the innocent looking Katie Robert and the innocent looking QB Tyler that's got you out here in Carmel Roads with Truly. That book was, I had her in there last week. She was something else, that book is. But because that character is irredeemable and Truly from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is the journey of him becoming a better person. And he is like Vladimir. He's Vladimir. And you think, how is this going to happen? And by the end, he's Barack Obama. And he goes from Vladimir to Barack Obama.
To Barack.
To Barack. I'm just talking about polar opposites on the scale of humanity. On the scale of humanity, the polar opposites. So you just, whatever. Don't get me Kremlin. I know they listening.
Are there any romance tropes you don't read or don't like? I mean, I know KGB is open to all authors, but you personally in your private reading life?
I used to say I had a limit, right? I didn't like Secret Babe or I didn't like Amnesia. But then I read Naima's, it's kind of like quasi Secret Baby. And I read like Theodore Taylor's Hope, and that was a Secret Baby romance. So now I can't say I don't like it, right? So I've learned not to say what I won't read until, because there is an author out there who has the ability to make you like something. Never say never. And like I said, I don't like to read about pregnant women, right? Naima got a book coming out in February. It's called Road to Rosebend. And it's guaranteed to be the best book of one of the best books of 2021.
Wow.
When I read the book, and this is me having read a lot of stuff. When I read the book, I cried. I called her and I was crying. And not because she's my friend, but because it was written so well. It deals with grief. It deals with self-discovery. It deals with found family. It just has all of the elements of just a beautiful romance. That book is like, they changed the Rita to the Vivian. She could win a Vivian for that book. That's how great that book was. And it was such an amazing read. And I was like telling Naima, I don't want her to be pregnant in the book. She was like, she's pregnant. But I read that book and it was so beautifully done that I can't now not say that I won't read pregnancy romance, because it was a great romance. And the chemistry was hot. And it was just such a beautifully written book. So the romance was off the chart.
It all depends on the writer.
It all depends on the writer. So I can't say a hard line no on everything.
As soon as you say it, some writer will talk you out of it by writing the perfect book.
Yeah, and that's what happens. Yeah. And that's what I love about Romancelandia. You know, it's someone out there doing something that is causing a sea change in the industry, that they're making you think of reading in a different way. And I think that's what I love about us too, is because we're taking chances first. Things are tested in this industry first before they get into the mainstream a lot of times. So we're trailblazers in a lot of ways.
Well, Kenya, I have always known that once we finally actually got to talk for real, that it would be just like this, mostly laughing. And I'm so grateful that you took the time out of your day to join me. This has been so fun.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much for having me. And I loved every moment of it. I loved it.
Before we go, will you tell our listeners where they can find you in all the places?
Everywhere I'm Kenya Goree Bell. On Facebook, Kenya Goree Bell. My website is my name, Kenya Goree Bell. Same thing for Instagram and Twitter, y'all. I'm the same person everywhere. So I just erased Karis. She's still out there, but it will be Kenya Goree Bell writing as Karis Bell. That's what I'm changing out my titles to. So yeah. So it's just
Perfect.
me, y'all.
Well, thank you. This has been an absolute delight.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. Anytime you want to talk about books,
Oh, we're doing this again for sure.
Yeah, text me your number. We can call. I'll call you later. For an hour. We'll talk for, I guarantee you, an hour.
Thanks for listening, book nerds. For more information on this episode and links to all the books we discussed, please go to our website, bestbookeverpodcast.com, or follow the podcast on Instagram at bestbookever. I'm your host, Julie Strauss, and you can find me everywhere as Julie Wrote a Book. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it on social media and leave a review on whatever podcatcher you use. Reviews really help our visibility to new listeners, and we are grateful for every one. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you at the library.